Well, very short one today. We're reading from Matthew 13, verse 33. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed in with 3 measures of flour until all of it was leavened. In this is the gospel of Christ. Words of life for the whole world.
The very astute among you might remember that we did that reading 2 weeks ago. There's a lovely story about a minister who arrived at a new congregation and led his first service. And it was a wonderful sermon and everyone was very impressed. The next week, the congregation was slightly surprised to hear exactly the same reading and sermon as the previous week. But they were far too polite to mention it, and all once again warmly thanked the minister after the service. When it happened again the third week, people began to be a little perplexed. And when he did it a fourth time, the elders thought that they should intervene. You've preached the same sermon 4 times now, they said. Yes, the minister replied, and until they start doing it, I'll keep on preaching it. Well, that's not the reason why I've gone over this reading this morning. But actually, this parable has been rolling around in my head over the past couple of weeks. And I've discovered a different angle that I think might be relevant to many people here this morning, and maybe to other people online. It's such a little simple parable, isn't it? A woman mixes some yeast with some flour, kneads it, and makes some bread. The simple story is meant to inform the listener about the kingdom of heaven. In such simplicity lies wonderful, rich depth. 2 weeks ago, I think Jenny read the sermon. We looked at the parable and thought about a number of elements of it. We thought about the amount of dough that the woman was kneading, 22.5 kilograms. We also saw links with the story of Abraham and Sarah from the Old Testament, where Sarah too made bread from an enormous amount of flour. We thought about the idea of the yeast being hidden inside the flour. And we also noted that Jesus subverted the normal Jewish understanding of yeast as spoiling flour and instead named yeast as the agent of the kingdom of heaven. Well, this week I'd like to take a very different tack, away from the flour, away from the yeast, away from the dough and the bread, and instead focus on the woman in the story. Now, it's a parable, so we have no backstory on the woman. We don't know if she was rich or poor, single, married, widowed. We have no idea of her age. She could be a young woman in the bloom of youth, or an old woman racked with arthritis and bent over from decades of toil and sacrifice. We aren't told her ethnicity, her skin colour, her religious beliefs, her wealth, her political persuasions, or even her favourite rugby team. This absence of detail is important to the story because she could be anyone. We can assume almost nothing because we can assume almost nothing other than that she knows how to make bread, and presumably, because she's making so much, she must be quite skilled. In Jesus' day, this is what women did. They made bread. They made it every day, without fail. They made it so that their family, their children, their parents, their community could all eat. This woman could be, in a sense, every woman. About the only other assumption that we can make from the story is that the woman was working hard. Kneading 22.5 kilos of flour would have been no small task. And if she was doing that, I think in that service we worked out it was about 45 loaves of bread. And if she was doing that day, fair to say that she was doing it every day. You can't feed your extended family one day, then let them starve because you couldn't be bothered making bread the next day. You had to go on and on making bread until you were too frail or too sick or too old to continue, and hope that by that time someone had stepped up and would start making the bread in your place and continue to feed those who depended on you. And dependable she was, making bread each and every day to feed those who relied on her. It would have been hard work, vital, yes, appreciated, maybe, but probably not. But still, at the end of the day, hard and vital work. Linking this woman's work of bread making with the parable, we understand that her actions of mixing the yeast into bread and kneading it was a sign of the kingdom of heaven. This didn't make the labour any less arduous. It may have given the process some sense of meaning, but it was still labour intensive. It was still unrelenting work. Knowing that she was helping to create the kingdom of heaven by her actions may have felt good, especially when she first started out. But weeks, months, years, decades later, the work would have been taking its toll on her health, maybe even shortening her life. We can imagine here that there were probably three sorts of people in the parable. The first is obvious and named. That's the woman kneading the bread. The second unnamed group would have been the support group for the woman, supplying her with the flour, with the yeast, with water and with ovens each and every day. Or maybe just offering their support and encouragement. Without this group of supporters, the task of daily bread making would have quickly overwhelmed her. There's also a third group, and they would have been the recipients of the bread, perhaps her extended family or the local community. They were the reason for the daily bread making, to feed these people and keep them from starving. So how could these three groups be translated into the idea of building the kingdom of heaven? Well, the woman, of course, would be the worker, be it bread making, food delivery, education, emergency care or trauma relief, respite care, the list could go on and on. She's the one with her sleeves rolled up, knee-deep in the problem, working with the people that need assistance, providing for their needs as she can. She understands and knows that the work will never cease. As Jesus said, you will always have the poor with you. There will always be a need for respite care, for trauma relief, for food delivery, for education. So the woman continues to do what she can do to help those in need, figuratively kneading the yeast of the kingdom of heaven into the flour of human existence and working to ease suffering. Then there's that second group, those who support the woman's work, providing logistical support, lending their expertise, providing transport, lending equipment, doing some of the heavy lifting, giving of their time when and where they can. This group even extends to those too old or frail to actively assist the woman with the work she has undertaken. Their moral support and advocacy for the program she is running gives the woman some of the energy she needs to continue with her work. At the end of the day, it's not about how much work each person has done, but rather the project's continuation and continuing success. And the third group, well, that's the group that's in need, the recipients of the work being undertaken by the woman and her assistants. And this can be a bit of a funny group. Some are so appreciative and thankful of any assistance given to them, and some can be dismissive or even rude to those trying to help. Caught in their cycle of poverty and dislocation, some people become expectant of handouts and belligerent of support that they deem not to meet their standard. No one said that kneading the yeast, the flour, would be easy. No one said that there would be rewards for the labour. Well, we here at Revesby are similarly tasked with helping to create the kingdom of heaven. We don't need bread here. The kingdom work we do here is different. Not to say that it's any less arduous, sometimes thankless, and always never-ending. We need the yeast of the kingdom of heaven into the flour of community through our outreach programs and church services. Let me give you some examples. The knitting program that has run here literally for decades is a perfect example of this kneading, run by just a single person. With the assistance of others, it gives opportunity for communal gathering and the breaking of social isolation for those who attend, knitting needles in hand. In turn, the program itself is a form of kneading the yeast into the flour of community through the products the group makes and donates to those in need. Another example would be the Kids Play group that meets weekly. There are some people who attend this group who no longer even have small children who attend. The grandchildren that they had been minding are now at school, but they choose to still come along and participate in this most successful program. The program meets their needs. A third example would be the Garden Club, one of our newer groups, which also meets weekly. Those who attend gain a sense of accomplishment from their work and are able to share the ups and downs of life with each other. There's something deeply satisfying in seeing plants grow as you spend time with nature, and the coordinator of the Garden Club enables that satisfaction to be experienced each week by those who attend. A fourth example would be our Sunday school, which ran for many, many years off the energy of two people. We all affirm the mantra that children are our future, but few of us would volunteer for an unrelenting weekly program of preparation, presentation, and pack-up, not even knowing how many children would turn up that week or how old or young they would be. And a final example would be the Dungeons and Dragons box game group that attracts young people to our church each week. Run by a young school teacher and his friends. Our church actively assists this group and its leaders to meet in a safe environment and serve the needs of those young people. There are other programs that our church has run and is running, all of which need the rest of the kingdom into the flour of community. You might be a person that runs one of those groups. Like the woman kneading the dough in our parable, your work can be unrelenting and sometimes arduous, sometimes even thankless. But it's vital work, and your unique skills and abilities allow your program to run. The world would not stop rotating if you throw in the towel and say enough. But the world would be just a little bit darker if you stopped. It was your insight that originally allowed you to see that there was a need. It was your creativity that enabled you to come up with a program to meet that need. And it's your loyalty and dedication that keeps the program running week after week, year after year, and for some, decade after decade. To you, we genuinely all say a very huge thank you. Some members of our congregation have occupations that place them in the centre of human need. Your work in the community in which you serve is both vital and ongoing. Please, when you get opportunities, share your experiences with us here at church Please share your experiences with us here at church as you're able, so we can offer support and care to you. You might not be a group leader. Instead, you might be a support person to one of these programs, helping out as you're able and actively supporting the group leader. Don't underestimate your importance to the program. Your support is key to keeping the group leader able to run the program, and your enthusiasm gives them the energy that they need to continue their work. Or you might be a recipient of the work being done by one of our church programs. You know, sometimes all that's required of you is a warm smile and a thanks as you accept the generous assistance given. Our parable today is a very earthy story that has been elevated to be an example of the kingdom of heaven. Kingdom story it may be, but it's still a story of sweat, hard work, and dedication. Our little church here thrives in the local community for the same reasons as our parable. The earthy work we do of organising and running groups for knitting, for young children, for gardeners, or for children attending church are the ways we're kneading the yeast of heaven into the flour of community. These programs are not ancillary to the church. They are its absolute core. They are the essence of what it means to be church in the 21st century here at Revesby. We receive financial assistance from Revesby Workers Club through the Club Grants program, which helps us run our Kids Play at Revesby program. Recently, Julie, the Kids Play coordinator, received correspondence from Revesby Workers Club asking if there might be opportunities for them to contribute more than just financially. Right there in that letter is a sign that we're impacting positively in the local community when an organisation reaches out to us and asks how they can help us. We're yet to think through this offer of assistance, but it's a sign that the yeast of the kingdom that we're kneading into the flour of community is beginning to leaven the dough and grow into something bigger. Amen.